It was the fall of 2015, and I just finished my first semester in college, meaning winter break would finally be upon me. I live in upstate New York, and around this time of year, it would become exceedingly cold in my area with temperatures dropping below the 30s. Growing up in the cold, I wasn't bothered by it and actually enjoyed it to a certain extent. One night, my mom had been out with a friend, leaving me to tend to the house alone. I didn't mind staying alone, as I like to think of myself as mature and responsible, and I could really use the quiet. Now, the house we lived in was located in the more rural side of my city. It wasn't like the country, but houses here were far apart, and the nearest grocery store was about 9 miles. With nothing to do, I throw myself onto my couch and put on some Netflix to fall asleep to. So there I am, bored out of my mind, watching Orange is the New Black when the power goes out. Living in a cold area where the winds are strong, it wasn't uncommon for it to go out once in a while. With nothing to do at this point, I closed my eyes and tried to fall asleep until my parents came home. I probably slept on the couch for about a good 2 hours when I for some reason wake up. The power is still out, so I couldn't see anything in the room other than the faint glow from the moon. However, I started having this weird feeling in the room. You know that sensation you get when you can just feel someone's watching you? Yeah, I had that in spades. I sat bolt upright while letting my eyes adjust to the dark, and right then I could see the outline of something tall beside the couch. By some miracle, the power comes back on, and about 2 feet away is a man standing over me. He looked to be in his mid-30s, was very tall and lanky, wearing a torn white shirt and some cargo pants. The thing that made the situation 10 times creepier was the fact that parts of his clothes were covered in blood. My blood ran cold as he stared down at me with this menacing glare of utter shock. I say I stared at him for a good 10 seconds before he says something along the lines of, who are you? I say in an angry tone, who are you and what the hell are you doing inside of my house? He then went on to explain that he was driving when his car skidded across the road from the ice, crashing into a large tree, and he came to the nearest house looking for help. It didn't take me long to realize that the blood on his clothes was his. In the heat of the moment, I thought his story was bullshit, but I didn't want to be rude. I tell him that there was nothing I could do and that if he didn't leave, I would call the cops. He didn't respond to this and started walking around the living room looking for stuff. Needless to say, I called the police and explained the situation to the operator. They said that it could take a while for an officer to get here due to the extreme weather conditions. I'm 5'8", that weighed around 150 pounds, and this guy was massive, so I couldn't take him on even if I tried. All the while, he's going through cabinets, opening doors, and wouldn't listen to me when I told him to stop. I could only assume that he was on something and prayed the police would be here soon. Turns out, his so-called bullshit story turned out to be 100% true. 2 police officers came to my door 15 minutes later and told me that he was indeed in a car crash. I felt so bad for him, assuming he was an intruder when the guy was just wanting some help. Apparently, the impact of the crash shocked him to the point where he didn't know what he was doing, which explained him searching through my living room. Long story short, he was sent to a hospital and me nor my mom pressed any charges. My parents didn't let me stay home alone after that until a few years later. This is by far the most strangest incident I've ever come across in my 9 years of living in that house. Even though I felt sympathy for the man, this story still scares me till this day. I'm 22 now and I have moved past it. But there's still one question I have. How did he get inside of my house? The thing is, my parents always keep our doors locked. So this just happened last week and I'm still shaken up by it. It is absolutely true and is by far the most horrifying thing that's ever happened to me recently. I won't bore you with unnecessary details, so I'll just get straight to the point. I was home alone with my boyfriend and we had just started watching the new and wildly popular Netflix show, Squid Game. It's around 11 o'clock at night, and as we were watching, my boyfriend tells me he's going to walk our dog. Feeling extremely tired and not wanting to go, I tell him I'll just stay here till he gets back. Fast forward till around 10 minutes later, I'm still watching the show when I see something in the corner of my eye. I look over and there's a woman who I'd never seen before peering in through the window. I instantly let out a "what the hell" while practically jumping out of my seat. The woman obviously must have heard it as she turns her head to face me. Right then, I run out of the house to where my boyfriend and dog were and we both go back inside. However, just like in most stories, she was gone. This happened to me a few years ago when I was 25 years old, and this is by far one of the scariest and unexplained encounters I've ever had. It is absolutely true, and it's something that I just had to share. I live in a terrace house, which is basically multiple houses combined together, forming that of an apartment. It's not the best place to live in, but my parents wanted me to move out, and this was one of the only few locations that I could afford monthly rent. I live in Los Angeles, so it's expensive as hell, and without a lot of money, you're basically either struggling financially or living on the streets. Anyway, I had just gotten home from work after a long day's shift and needed time to myself. Being the big couch potato I was, I threw myself onto my couch and watched some Netflix with my cat until my fiance got home. I have a peach-colored American short-haired cat named Gus, and he's actually my emotional support animal to help me cope with my anxiety. So I'm sitting there, watching Orange is the New Black with my cat, when he suddenly starts meowing repeatedly. Even though it's something all cats tend to do, I found the behavior very strange, as my cat never meows unless he wants food. But seeing as he was already fed not too long ago, it didn't make any sense. All of a sudden, his meowing turned into high-pitched hissing while arching his back. The hair on his back also began to stick up. At this point, I didn't know how he had gotten so scared. And that's when I realized that he was looking at the bathroom door in the hallway. My heart sank into the pit of my stomach as I realized something must have startled him. The door to the bathroom was shut, but I quietly tiptoed over to the door and put my ear to it. And that's when I heard it. A loud bang hit the door, and I grabbed Gus and took him outside of my apartment down to the lobby. At first, I figured that my boyfriend was messing with me in the worst way possible, but he had claimed that he was still at work when I called him. With no other option, I call police and they have 2 cars over within 5 minutes. 2 of the officers questioned me while the other 2 went to go check in my apartment. When they got back, they had some very odd news to share with me. They had gone up to my room and searched my entire apartment, but didn't find anyone. This was technically impossible, as I had locked the front door when I heard the noise, so whoever was there couldn't have left. I don't know if it was an intruder or something paranormal, but I knew that my mind wasn't playing tricks on me as my cat had gotten startled. One thing I do know is that I wasn't alone in my apartment building that evening. So, I live with my boyfriend in a small 1-storied house in the suburbs just outside of Bristol, England. Now, my boyfriend is the manager at our local pet supermarket, so he'd oftentimes have to work late night shifts during the night. Because of his crazy work hours, I was forced to stay home and occupy myself by watching movies on the TV. One night, it was raining heavy and my boyfriend was at work as usual, and I was at home watching a few episodes of The Walking Dead on Netflix. While watching my show, I unexpectedly heard a knock at the door. At first, I thought it was our delivery guy that brings us our groceries every week, so I get my ID and start heading toward the door while putting on my mask. This was during the current pandemic, and my boyfriend and I don't like to go shopping in fear of catching the virus, so we have someone bring it to us. I opened the door, ready to hand out my ID, but was shocked to see some random guy just standing there in the rain. He wore a black long-sleeved shirt, black pants, and he had messy hair, almost homeless. Suddenly, he started abruptly making loud, high-pitched noises. His mouth hung open, revealing several missing teeth, and I saw craze in his red eyes. It startled me at first, but trying to be polite, I asked him if he needed help. But as expected, he gave no response. This guy was clearly on some strong shit. At this point, my adrenaline was rushing like crazy, but I didn't want to be rude and close the door on him. After several attempts of me asking if he needed help, he slowly turned around and walked back away, disappearing into the night, still pouring like crazy. I was a bit weirded out, but I didn't feel threatened and figured this guy was just drunk. I continued to watch my show, and eventually my boyfriend comes home and we call it a night. Fast forward to around 4 in the morning. I was sleeping in my bed when I heard my phone ring. I rubbed my eyes and saw that it was an unknown number, so I could only assume that it was bad news. As soon as I picked up the phone, I then heard the noises. The very same noises from the man earlier. I hung up the phone and blocked the number, making sure that they wouldn't call back. But I have no idea as to how he managed to get my number. That question still haunts me till this day. I still live in that house today, and nothing strange or abnormal has ever happened since.